Welcome to League of DC. I'm your host, Taladia Plays, and I'm going to be joined by the one and only. He brings the heat in J Heat, that is J Heat 75. Let's welcome on in.
What's up?
What's up? What's up, man? Yeah, so we've got a couple of things we can cover today. Obviously we're going to talk about the DC game stuff. So if it's really interesting. And the topic of obviously is what DC game should be next for WB Games Montreal. But before we talk about that specific topic, we got to talk about the 2023 game slate, right?
Okay.
Because that is really we got some really cool games coming up in 2023. That is we've got Suicide Squad Killer Justice League specifically. That is coming out in May 26th. And then after that, who knows what WB will do with Wonder Woman now, right? So if WBD decides to put out one DC game next year, do you think that's a missed opportunity to have two
Very
DC
missed up.
games?
Very solid missed opportunity. And I will say this, full disclosure: Wonder Woman 3 was not officially canceled. The pitch was just not very good, and Patty Jenkins let her ego get the better of her, and she walked out of the project because of it. But it's not canceled; it's just shelved. There's a difference. But whether or
Yeah,
not the video game is going to tie into it remains to be seen.
yeah, it wasn't going to be tied into the games anyway. That movie wasn't going to tie into the games. Um, but yeah, so we're gonna quickly talk. Well, we're gonna move on swiftly, and this is gonna be what was that sound?
Sorry, some sound effects I was trying. Sorry about that.
All right, it's all good. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about the next WB Montreal game. That what game should it be for WB Games Montreal as the next DC game? Because Gotham Knights is now completely finished. Like, there's not gonna be any DLC, it seems, and it struggled. Gotham Knights did. It really did struggle in terms of
And the
um
Arkhamverse comparisons wasn't doing you any favors. I'm not gonna
yeah,
say it was a dud. I'm not gonna say it was a dud, but definitely mid. Definitely mid. It
definitely
was a
mid. Definitely,
oh.
definitely.
Speaking of Batman,
Uh, the
go to
Batman.
the comments. Yep.
Yo, what's up, the Batman? Welcome on in. How you doing? Welcome, welcome. And
But
yeah,
to make it a long story short, the Gotham Knight should have been the Arkhamverse sequel because the story was right there. You may not have been able to utilize the League of Assassins because Talia and Raish were killed off in City, depending on which
mhm,
version you did the DLC in. But the Court of Owls, solid villains. It could have worked rather than trying to cram the Suicide Squad into it, which was supposed to tie into the Suicide Squad. I believe it was the 2016 movie, and it got delayed, and it just got delayed, shelved, and revived. It was just poor management by WB all around.
I think WB meddling with these studios project was the big factor for some of these games
I
that
agree.
got some of these games cancellation and some of these games that are that turned out to be that didn't turn out to be great. Like Gotham Knights was supposed to be the game that was going to be saving grace for WB Montreal, but because the fact that the studio interfered, I'd say, pretty much saying that, oh, we're not going to go down the live service route and instead being non-game as a service because it had that element. Gotham Knights had that element to be game as a service type of game, and the game was just like um, pretty much you had like loot system, and it did feel like it.
They
I was just
they wanted to distinguish themselves as much as Marvel's 2017 as possible, which I understand. Which I understand.
hey Dave, and welcome on in, Dave. Dave says they did a decent job with Arkham Origins. They should have just focused
I
on the
agree.
side. Yeah, they
I
should
agree.
just. I agree with your statement. They should just follow. You focus on solely single player games because multiplayer or co-op based games isn't going to help their cases anymore. And I don't think. I think they should just set it in the Arkhamverse.
But regardless of nostalgia or specific continuities, we can all agree that studio interference is a
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
Like whether it be movies, TV shows, video games, I think we can all agree on that all across the board.
I mean, they cancelled off 3 games from WB Games Montreal. 3 different games. One of them was Superman, another one was Suicide Squad, and then another one being the Batman game, which was all
Huh?
like,
Batman getting canceled? That's weird.
yeah, there was a Batman game cancelled called it was a Damian Wayne Batman game,
Oh,
and it was
Arkham Legacy. Okay, I thought you were talking about another Batman game, but I
no, no,
that one I can understand because Damian Wayne does get a lot of stigma. Like I get it, but
but you never guess what who was gonna also gonna be in the game.
exactly. And
Old man Bruce Wayne,
old man Bruce Wayne, I get it. It wasn't if you're
but
gonna do a
as him playing as Batman, basically you get
yes
to play
for a
as
good bit of the game, and then that's the growing pains. And there was a larger story there. I agree. And first of all, who was I'm just speaking in general, not so much say what you will about the character himself, but come on, who wasn't a little shit at that age range? Who wasn't a little shit back then? Like, come on. And if you're gonna throw injustice in the argument, you're welcome to do so. But in injustice, Damien was neglected and abandoned out of spite. Yes, Damien was an asshole in injustice. But if you actually read the comics and take everything into context, Damien's resentment was justified, not typical teenage angst. Even though you easily could have played it off as such, with how it was completely overblown. It was like I was watching Chris O'Donnell's Batman and Robin.
yeah. And Dave says in the chat, the new mandate of all DC games has to be part of the film's universe won't be good for game development. Well,
It's
not all games, not
now
all.
there are it's kind of like the movie situation. It's kind of like similar to the animated movies. There are going to be a few Elseworld or standalone projects. They have to get at least 2 standalone projects during a fiscal year. So every 6 months, you're going to get at least 2 standalones commissioned, scripted, and ready to go. You're going to get at least 2.
After I would say 2024, 2025. I would say,
I
and
agree.
I, I think I think we're gonna get some indication next month on whether or not um what studio is gonna be next.
I agree. And while we're waiting until 80, what do y'all think the next project should be for WB Montreal? You're
Um,
welcome to put say in the chat.
I'm back. Sorry about that. Just people just don't knock on the door. Okay, while we wait on thing. Okay. Um. Okay. So I feel what I feel is like WB Games, DCU games has to be something top tier. The Batman says Superman.
Definitely a Superman games in order. Definitely.
Yeah, that's been talked about for decades. People have demanded for a Superman game from whether it's from Rocksteady or whether it's from WB Games Montreal. But people have been saying, look, we need a Superman game. Now, um, Dave says Damien had a great character art. He was groomed to be a royal assassin, royalty by Ration Talia, but had learned humility and humanity by Bruce. Yeah, pre, pre, pretty. That's correct. Yes.
I feel like
Um.
I feel like the Decamu did it best. Now, granted, Grant Morrison had an overarching. Okay, you could argue the Grant Morrison run was a trilogy in of itself if you're tying everything to Batman Inc. and Leviathan. But the Camus did it best. It simplified it to where general audiences can understand it. Okay, maybe this kid's a little rough around the edges, but he does have three-dimensional traits, and he discovers a sense of humanity. So I agree with Dave the Impaler. It is Damien is a great character, and he did have a solid character arc if you get it right. Instead of making him a I forgot I'm not on Comics League for a second. If you don't make him a douchebag for the sake of dynamic tension, or just a general indifference towards the character. Damien's
Yeah,
not that hard. He's not. He's like Zuko from Atla, or Keela, excuse me, Keela from Hunter x Hunter. He's not that difficult.
right, yeah. But I just think what WB needs to do now going forward has to be A-list characters. It can't be B-list, and it can't be characters that are, let's say, characters that are sidekick characters. They can't do that. They literally can't, because if they do sidekick characters, let's say if they do a Birds of Prey game, or let's say to do a Titans game, how many people are going to eat that up?
Now,
And
to be fair, Titans could work. Titans, you could pull that off.
you could pull off Titans, but after the failure of Gotham Knights, is
I
it
don't.
risky?
I,
Is it that much of a risk for them?
to be fair, they tried to market Gotham Knights without Batman, and it's not an Arkham sequel. They tried to make it complete standalone. There were a lot of blunders going into Gotham Knights. Now, if you made it part of the Arkhamverse, you might have been able to explain away some of that. But you had to create a complete original story that Batman dies, gets revived and brainwashed by Talia, and then dies again. You
Yeah,
might as well just make it part of the Arkhamverse. It's a lot smoother that way, and you barely have to explain anything.
but for me, it was just because I feel some of these guys were less known. Dave says, "I would love a Green Lantern coach game with elements of Mass Effect and No Man's Sky. That would be an
Uh,
interesting. uh,
interesting.
That would be interesting. But I feel they need to get out that first first class of wave of AAA titles first. Like the Trinity there's only been two out of the three Trinity that has got DC games coming up, which is obviously we've just had the Batman Arkham trilogy, and now we're getting Wonder Woman. So it's like what would make sense is to have a Superman game after um after after Gotham Knights for their second IP, and not focus on, you know, lesser known characters, psychic characters that will get people saying, "Oh yeah, you know what? This isn't the, the greatest thing going," because I think because if they do Titans, yeah, Titans have got a stack full of villains like DC Comics Game was explained to me. Like they've got like the Brother Blood and Hive and Trigon and stuff like that. But it isn't as big as Superman or as big as Justice League, right? It needs to be something as big as that.
But if you are going to make it, okay, video games are very complex. Not so much in terms of getting general audiences, but trying to interconnect it to everything else.
Yeah,
The best way to do it is to have a tie-in comic that has a similar story to the game. That way you get a general gist in case a certain percentage of your audience or demographic skips out on the game due to the premise, or just skips it, or just forgets about it in general, because DC has a bad brand marketing problem. Not We can cover branding all night, but they have a
yeah,
terrible marketing problem. They barely promote anything. They just don't
agreed.
go out of their way. They do like the
Dave,
bare minimum.
Dave says it's weird how no one seems to crack the formula of for a Superman game. There has been a crack for the Superman game before, but it got shut down by uh, by Warner Brothers, and that was for Factor 5 back in 2008. That formula worked big time.
But
Um,
they didn't think it could sell due to the disaster that was Superman Returns.
no, it was due to the crisis. It was Um, it was due to the financial crisis that literally WB didn't support it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Um, Superman Returns game is a great baseline to work with. In terms, yeah, it is a great baseline in terms of flight mechanics, but combat mechanics it needs to be either a brawler type Superman game like Factor 5 did it, or it needs to be something like along the lines of what Dragon Ball Z Kakarot does, which is elements of the RPG elements into it. And hey, veteran nerd girl, welcome on in. Uh, I appreciate the like. Make sure you guys do hit the like button and subscribe. I appreciate it ever so much. Yeah, I heard that the developers of Rogue Squadron games canceled that game bankrupt. The developers, yes, they did. Uh, Batman says retro. But yeah, like it's crazy to think, right? We could have had not one, not two, but maybe possibly three DC games, and we got oh boy, we got Tevia in the chat. Welcome
Hey,
on
you
in.
didn't say. Hey, you didn't say Super Sons. You
I
didn't
didn't
say
say
Super Sons.
I didn't say Super Sons, but I know what Tevia is gonna say once we mention Superman. You want Jonathan Kent as always. Um, and Retro says hey to the Batman.
And
Um,
I'm just gonna mention this right quick. What
yeah,
What do you think about the Tom Taylor pity series? I'm just gonna call it as it is with the Adventures of Superman John Kent, because I did read issue 1050 in that preview, and it gave me very the Kingdom vibes, where there was a pseudo murder mystery across the multiverse. It was very similar. I just wouldn't be surprised if he was trying if Tom Taylor was just trying to rip off the Kingdom. You know, the Kingdom Come sequel from
I think he
2000s.
was. I think he might have. I'm not too sure.
Yeah,
I'm not
I
too
just
sure.
I wouldn't be surprised if he ripped that off.
Yeah. But you know, yeah, a Superman game in the God of War series, with Clark Kent and yeah,
That's kind of forcing it, but I get where you're coming from. That's kind of
Tevia. They're not
forcing it.
Tevia. Then they're not going to do Jonathan Kent in a video game. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I know
Maybe a Lego game like with Super Sons, but
maybe Lego
no.
format, maybe in a Lego game format. Yes, definitely. But WB Games Montreal would not be doing Jonathan Kent. They need to focus on they need to focus on Connor Kent, Supergirl first, establish them as characters, then do Jonathan Kent after. Because those
But with the
characters,
success, but with the relative success of the Arrowverse, do you think Supergirl could carry her own game?
no, no, she'd be DLC character.
Okay.
Do you get what I
Okay.
mean? Because
Yeah, I understand. I get it.
it could be playable DLC characters that could be used. Um, and Devia says technically we did get John Kent Superboy in Lego game before DC and Superman, Lego DC supervillains, I should say. And I don't think I remember seeing
He
that.
was he was playable, but I don't think he played a role in the overall story. I think that was a glorified
No, he
cameo
didn't.
than anything.
It was yeah, it was just a cameo, if anything. But in terms of what WB Games needs to do now, they
They
need
need
to
to
put out.
focus on the Trinity. They need to at least
They
get
need
3 projects, one for Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and maybe a Trinity game if they're successful. That they need to focus
they
on the
need each
A-listers right now.
they need to focus on A-listers, right? If they don't focus on these A-list characters, then it doesn't make any sense for WB to do a Titans game or Dave says maybe they'll try and spin off a Justice League game out of the Suicide Squad Kill Justice League.
But
That
what
all
could you really
depends.
do? What could I could see a DLC where it's the Justice League doing their day to day before they get mind controlled by Brainiac, which let's be honest, that's what the big twist is going to be. If I'm wrong, then you're welcome to roast me on the internet. But more than likely, the Justice League is mind controlled. More than likely.
Dave, I'll be honest with you. Rocksteady would be the ones might be doing Justice League, if anything. If not, if they're not prepared to make that jump yet, but the thing is, the whole recast will be a big thing. They make a big deal out of Kevin Conroy's portrayal as Batman in Suicide Squad Kill Justice League. And now that that was his final appearance, who's going to be recasting him? That's the big thing, right? For Rocksteady, who would recast him? So, so that's my point there. But Tevia says, and so anything is possible, and I thought it was fun. It was a cameo, but yes, damn, it was cute. Those side quests to unlock my boy John Kent as a kid in that game. It was super adorable. Purple Eye is a hint. A Trinity game would be awesome and tons of fun, especially with Kevin Conroy's Pattern, sadly. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Um, it's definitely a sad thing, so I don't know. But in terms of WB Games Montreal, though, they need something big. Now, what story they could adapt? That's the question that we could, debate on.
there's not many that haven't already been done either through the movies or live or animated. But if you're
I mean,
really looking,
I mean,
go ahead.
there is one story that has been attempted and that has done decent for a Superman game, and that would be Superman Brainiac.
Brainiac Unbound.
No, Superman. It's called Superman Brainiac, the comic done by Jeff Johns,
Okay.
and literally, you know, introduces Supergirl, right? And it kind of introduces um the bottle of Candor type of thing, and Brainiac as a human, as a flesh and uh, mechanical person, alien, I should say, and also the fact that we also get to see Lois and Clark's relationship in that movie.
Definitely.
So imagine that in a video game, right? But also imagine that what sort of side characters they could do, they could introduce into that game. I feel they could do Calabac as a villain. Hey, Mama Bear, welcome on in.
And Dave
Uh,
has a pretty good idea. That but that is good on paper, but that's more akin to have your cake and eat it too. Because
yeah,
the way the game is marketed is the Suicide Squad versus the Justice League. Now having them be brainwashed by Brainiac would be a lot easier than trying to cram the crime syndicate into it. And it's this big epic battle, especially if this goes wrong. I
and
could I could see that, but I think Last Son of Krypton, I think they're going to save something like that for for the new universe with James Gunn. But that's definitely a
yeah,
good story for a game.
that would be a good story for a game. But I think that for a movie, that's what they're probably going to save that for. DCU movies. But I think some of these, Superman Brainiac is the obvious choice, right?
I agree.
For sh-
Can't go
but
wrong.
if I had to choose, I would have to say that Doomsday, Livewire, Bizarro, um, Parasite, um, Metallo, um,
There are good Superman villains out there. Now, whether
they're
are we going to factor this in the new DCU, or are we going to factor this as a Superman standalone game? Because
standalone game. I'd say
because
standalone game, because it's not going to be connected to the DCU. WB Montreal's next game isn't going to be connected to DCU whatsoever.
okay,
I
for a
can,
standalone game, I would say Parasite because it's a self-contained story. Parasite is literally energy and power based. He's able to absorb and counter anything you throw at him, but he can only copy one person at a time. And it's kind of similar to Superman Man of Tomorrow. If you've actually seen that film, I highly recommend it. But
yes, I have.
okay, it's a self-contained story. It has strong themes and solid story beats. You might have to cut Martian Manhunter and Lobo for in comparison for time, but I feel like the overall story, the overall screenplay of that game would make a decent would be pretty good in video game format.
And Tevia says we technically got Forever Evil with Crime Scene. Yes, we did, which
To
was
an
I thought,
extent, to an extent, a campy version of it.
yeah. I wonder how the game will do in sales. I'm surprised that Suicide Squad didn't do well in the box office. Um,
It was better than the 2016 version. I'll give him that.
Not really. The Suicide Squad did less than the 2016 Suicide Squad.
Really?
Yes, look it
Huh.
up. Look it up.
Huh.
You'll be able to see. That's including that's including um what's it called? Bo what's it called? DVD and Blu-ray sales and stuff, right? The Suicide Squad didn't do well. The only reason why it did well it was because of critics. That's pretty much it. Other than that, it didn't do well in numbers, right?
Most likely flopped
But
because of its dual release on HBO Max. Okay. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Because these Suicide Squad made 746.8 million.
yeah. And then Suicide Squad
So
made. You gotta think about it. The Suicide Squad was, I think it was post pandemic or pre pandemic,
keep pre
and
yeah.
Mama Bear says that the Suicide Squad made less than Wonder Woman 84, which is true.
Yikes. Yikes. Yikes.
So I don't know how they're gonna cope with that DC slate. That is gonna be my big. That's gonna be the next stream, guys. We're gonna be talking about the DC slate next stream for sure. That is something that we got planned up. But this stream was particularly for DC games because I think, we got so like there's so much we could talk about, like potential, what stories they could tell, whether it's Justice League, what Justice League story that we could do.
Justice League, the Imperium, that would be a good Justice League story. The Imperium from the DCAU. Justice League War would probably be too straightforward because especially since you have the animated movie.
hmm
But what's a good?
Choose
I
the
mean,
Suicide.
the Justice League versus the Secret Six. That wait, I'm probably thinking of something else.
I
Okay, I do agree, Tevia, that dual release was a factor, but I don't think it really would have made that much of a difference because you're comparing pre-pandemic to post-pandemic. So I don't really think that would have made much of a difference.
Yeah. Um, I would say Justice League uh takes on um not the Suicide Squad, but more along the lines of the Legion of Doom.
Okay, would this be just a stereotypical League versus Legion type story, or would this be more like Justice League Doom with Batman's contingency plans get used against the League? No,
Yeah,
Tower of Babel. That's what. Yeah, Tower of
yeah,
Babel.
Tower of Babel. That's what I would have gotten. Tower of Babel for the Justice League game because it would make the game more
Yep,
interesting and intriguing just to just to say, oh, we could do it like this, and it'd be challenging too, really challenging. I would make it an open world game too.
definitely. And Tevia, that would require a lot of setup. That's way too much for one game. That you could
Yeah,
make a trilogy of games out of that. You would
yeah,
need proper.
that'd be way too much. But in terms of a Titan story, because we did discuss about Titans, if WB Montreal are making the Titans game, what sort of stories they could do for that?
Trigon. There's only like very few major Titan stories you could really do that aren't just C-listers or below. You have Trigon the Terrible. You have the infamous Judas contract. You have the the Technus Imperative with Brother Blood,
hmm
and maybe some random and skirmishes with Deathstroke or the High Five, similar to Teen Titans 03. But there's only very few distinctive storylines you could use with a Titans game. Very few. With the adult Titans, you might have a bit more, but it's not by much.
Yeah, I'm just talking about Titans in general. Um, maybe they should do a big game based on the DCAU Bruce Timm art style. That would make everyone happy. The only question is whether they recast or leave out Batman. Now, interesting you bring that up, Dave. Rocksteady was going to be the DCAU for the Arkham. The Arkhamverse was going to be the DCAU of everything, literally, right? So we were going to have Superman from um, Factor 5 that was inspired by the DCAU instantly because they said that in the interview in on Twitter and whatnot. One of the devs came out and said that like this game was gonna have inspirations from the DC Superman animated series, and it was gonna take inspiration from Justice League Unlimited. And I was just
As
like,
long as you
well,
as long as you don't factor bat cest into it, I think we'll be fine.
are you talking? Don't even go there with what. Don't even go there, cause definitely that would trigger Snyder Queen. Cause don't go there.
Uh,
You're gonna make Jared happy. I'll tell you that. You be a happy bunny. Um, but
uh,
um, in
oh, the
terms of
culling was atrocious. The only real good part of that story is that they canonized Artemis from Young Justice. That was the only good part of that storyline. The culling was just god awful. Hell,
yeah.
don't get me
But
started on New 52 Titans.
but when it comes down to the DCAU, I think they WB sorry, not WBD, Rocksteady had their had their have got their stakes in that because of Kevin Conroy, right? And I wonder if we are going to get the DCAU actors coming back to voice, their respective roles.
In a way, you could say Arkhamverse had a very DCAU vibe to it, at least with the Bat family and their dynamic. You could
Yeah,
easily make.
you could do no. You've read that comment.
I already read that. Thank you,
Okay.
Tevia, for repeating everything I just said.
So I want you to bring this up, right?
Okay.
If WB Games next game is a big AAA IP, right? What what year would you want this game out, and how soon?
Take your time. Take your time. That's the first thing I would say. Whether it be 2024, 2025, heck, even 2026. Take your time
Right.
because at least with the new DCU, you have a safety net there. Focus on those games if you really want to establish that interconnectivity, but your standalones have to be on point, period, because that's
The
your bread and butter.
caveat, they can't. I don't see them doing Green
It's too
Lantern.
it's too expansive of a project.
It's too big of an expansion, and with the new job listing, that job listing, was a senior producer.
And to go the quick to Dave's comment, the Arkhamverse, it's pretty solid. There is some synergy with the DCAU. The only difference is Jason Todd's not directly referenced in the DCAU continuity specifically, but it's pretty solid because again, Tim doesn't get Jokerized into Joker Jr. until his late adolescence, but it's
Yeah,
pretty similar until his late adolescence. They didn't give him a teenage redesign for artistic purposes, but yeah, that's pretty solid.
Mama
I'll give
Bear
it to him.
says. Mama Bear says the only voice actor I don't expect back is Hamill. Him and Kevin Conroy would always ask if they had other was involved.
I agree. I agree. I could
Yeah,
definitely see Mark Hamill going to semi-retirement with Kevin Conroy's passing. I could easily see that.
yeah.
Aquaman's not that big. Aquaman was the best DC movie for what the DCEU ultimately became, but Aquaman is not that big by himself. He's not that
He
big.
it's gonna be something that James Gunn's gonna tackle in a DCU game, not a not
Standalone.
a not a
Not a,
standalone game
not a
like the
standalone.
Arkhamverse, not like the Arkhamverse or the Injustice universe or even the Gotham Knights universe. They're not gonna do something like that
You have a better
because
chance bringing the Super Friends back.
yeah, you have a good chance of doing that. But I was just super, I'm super excited for what next for WB Games Montreal has got up the cooking up. But I just hope that it doesn't do what Gotham Knights did, because Gotham Knights ended up being a 2 months game. What for? That was for nothing. They're 13, 10 years, you know, 10-year wait just for a 2 months game.
And the $60 price tier didn't do them any favors. If you made a playable Batman pre-order, you might have been able to justify it.
Yeah,
But yeah, they did not do themselves. They really shot themselves in the foot with that one.
yeah. Dave says Hamill keeps saying he's done with the role after every new project, but he's probably done for sure now. Yeah, that's why I could see them avoiding anything with Batman. I could see a Titans game that that could particularly because I like to see Beast Boy in a game. Everyone's been saying Beast Boy in a game for years. It wasn't an injustice
And
either.
Fortnite does not count. That's a skin.
Yeah, Fortnite don't count.
Okay. I will say this: Legacy was not that bad. It justified Aqualad's double cover in season two. How Wally and Artemis went into retirement together. It did have some core themes and plot points. Young Justice Legacy was not that bad, but the game mechanics were atrocious. So I don't think you can justify a Young Justice video game, specifically that version of Young Justice, because of how Legacy was received. The story was good, the gameplay was just awful.
Agreed. Um, but I think I don't see a Young Justice game happening. I think it'd be more over Titans over that.
Definitely.
Um, that
That would
I'm
be
a,
awesome. It's
it
just
would be
unlikely.
awesome. It's just unlikely.
Like I said, the story was good, just the game mechanics.
Yeah, that's
If you can stomach those lousy game mechanics, and yeah, the story's worthwhile, but that's its only saving grace.
also I
Yeah,
can see.
yeah.
Yeah,
Or
I
do it in
know.
or do it in a way based off the He-Man Master of the Universe Superman ending, where Bruce doesn't really play a role. He's mind controlled the whole time, and it's Damien's Batman's leading the resistance.
Yeah.
That's the only way that would work.
Um, Dave says Green Lantern was almost one of the biggest DC's biggest characters alongside Superman and Batman because of the momentum of Jeff Johns' run, but Ryan Reynolds' movie made all that scratch to a halt.
And I will play devil's advocate. Green Lantern 2011 wasn't that bad. Now, if you're a fan of the character and the source material, it was atrocious. But for a standard pseudo origin story, it was decent. A little bit of a clusterfuck, but a decent origin story. I would have just dropped that and focused solely on the cosmic space adventure rather than trying to fit into the mold of an origin story. But I could see what they were going with. 2011's GL was just the best out of a bad situation. It's
There was a, here's a funny thing. There was two DC comic movie game tie-ins. One of them was Superman Returns, and the other one was Green Lantern Rise of the Manhunters.
from the Green Lantern the animated series. Okay.
No, 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 that was from the animated series. That was from it was a movie game tie-in.
Oh,
Movie tie Yeah, literally. Didn't do well, but it that the developers that who made that game were gonna make a Justice League game, but they changed it into a Green Lantern game retrospectively.
and
So
despite all the fan outrage that GL 2011 got, GL the animated series was pretty solid. I hate they didn't use Yellow Lantern because of a certain clause, because of how bad the movie was. But I think they could have made it work if they renegotiated with the show's success in a season two. I definitely could have seen that working.
so but I want to hear from you guys in the chat though, because I would love to hear your thoughts in the chat. What out of your top five, give me a list of top five DC IPs you guys would want to see for a DC game from WB Games Montreal. List them up and give me a reason why, and it doesn't have to be five good reasons. And we'll make sure to have yours up on the screen. and because my top five is simple. Obviously, first one has to be Superman because for me, Superman hasn't had a game in 16 years, and there's lots of stories you could tell that that can work in the video game realm. And on top of that, there is game mechanics you can use for that. Second game, I would say Justice League game because Justice League is one of the biggest IPs that that has made a lot of money for DC. And even though they're using Justice League in Suicide Squad Killer Justice League, imagine that we get a Justice League game in the Arkhamverse and they have the Arkhamverse engine. Just imagine it. That would be pretty cool. Um, Number three, of course, I would say Titans, just purely because Titans is another big IP that that they're really big. I would say the Judas Contract or Tower of Babel or well not Tower of Babel, Judas Contract or Bread of Blood or something along the lines of that they could do. I would also um Dave says the Green Lantern Titan game was pretty good. Okay, yeah.
On Wii.
Yeah. Super Sons I want to have their own game.
That would probably be like a Lego or something with a very young demographic. But I could see a Super Sons video game with the movie's release.
For my third one though, my third one definitely Titans because I just think that there is something you could do with Titans, right? Because there's a lot of Easter egg. Number four, I would say a Flash game.
Definitely, I agree.
A Flash game that I don't know what type of story you could do though, but
Probably
there is
something involving all his rogues, maybe a team up with the rogues.
yeah. And number five, I would say is I wouldn't say uh
A
well
Green
we
Arrow game.
no Green Arrow is too close. Maybe another Batman Arkham game, I would say.
Hmm.
And I would set it in between Origins and Asylum.
Okay. My top five would definitely be a Flash game, as you mentioned. Don't no reverse Flash. I think we've become too reliant on Eobard Thawne. So number five would definitely be a Flash game. Number four would probably be a Titans game for obvious reasons because that one's pretty solid. Number three, a Wonder Woman game because again, why have it? She's one of the Trinity and she hardly gets any branding.
We are getting a Wonder Woman game. Just remember that.
Okay, okay, remains to be seen. Number three, number two, I don't really see it as much as a priority because they can really make a Batman game anytime, but definitely another Arkham game if possible. And number one, obviously Superman.
Yeah. Mama Bear says I can give three Teen Titans, Lantern Corps, Gotham City Sirens. Ooh, now
Ooh,
that I like. I like those ideas. I would love the Teen Titans game because they would be amazing. Just a search for Donald Troy.
that
Flash game.
that story in comics, that story, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I can understand. Flash game on GBA was good. Yes. A Flash game with Wally West would be pretty awesome with him fighting his family in Rogues.
Wally West was just a better Flash. Let's just call it what it is. Wally West was just the better Flash.
And finally, Hitavia says, "I want a Superman game that does what Arkham Asylum did and sets up the world and the universe." Now,
Okay.
I wonder if WB Montreal isn't making Superman, I think Rocksteady might well tackle it. It might be.
Definitely.
That all remains to be seen, though, guys. It's gonna be. You gotta remember though, because WB Games now has at least 12 months before the next game announcement. At least 12 months, right? They're not gonna announce anything at E3. They ain't gonna. They, even though people are like saying, "Oh, we're gonna get WB Montreal's next game announcement at E3," No, that isn't gonna happen because there's two good reasons. Because WB Games has only got what two big games coming out next year. That one being Hogwarts Legacy and Suicide Squad. Those are the only two big IPs coming out next year. Um, and yeah, um, and then we don't know about this Wonder Woman. That's another thing too, because Wonder Woman's also another thing. Tevia says would also love Static Shock game because I love the character. He deserves its own game, similar to Infamous. I can
He
see that
has
being it.
lost. He has lost a lot of relevance as of late. This was like the mid or late 2000s, and
I can
definitely,
see I can see Static Shock getting a game, but it would be under the James Gunn umbrella.
definitely, definitely.
Yeah. I the Batman says I trust Rocksteady Studios more to make a Superman game. Yes, a lot of people do, including myself. I would love to see Rocksteady make it, but WB declined it like idiots. Yep, one DC game and the other one spin-off to Harry Potter franchise. Yep. So it all depends like what WB do next year for E3 because Suicide Squad comes out in May and then strictly like the month after or 2 months after, I think it is. It's E3. It's E3 season. Now, I want to bring this up with you, JT, right? E3 is the biggest gaming convention, right?
Yes, definitely. It's definitely one of the bigger ones. Not as grand as Comic Con or what DC
No,
fandom tried. No,
no, I mean
definitely not.
this is like strictly gaming, right?
Okay, strictly gaming. Okay, definitely. E.g., E3 is one. Yes, definitely. I completely agree with that. Ooh, a John Constantine. It could work, but it would be mature. I mean,
Yeah.
no, it would have to be strictly mature. I'm a strictly rated M mature game. Strictly. But yeah, with the right people, a John Constantine game could be pulled off. But to get back to your point, then yes, E3 is one of the biggest caveats for gaming, hands down. A lot of things get announced. Just about everything mainstream gets announced on E3. Just about.
Yeah.
So
Tevia says just before we, you know, let you talk. Tevia says WB declining a Superman game was really stupid, especially with Rocksteady at the helm. Yeah,
okay,
pretty much.
but a lot of that was due to the recession. So that was more circumstantial than anything.
No, the Rocksteady pitched the Superman game, and they got declined by the studio, and this was back in 2017, 2018.
Oh yeah, you told me about that one time.
Yeah,
Okay, a Telltale John.
I can,
Yeah, but the Telltale games are teen for teen. You cannot justify a John Constantine game within a teen for teen rating. It's just not going to happen.
no, it isn't gonna happen. But back to saying about E3, I think because E3 is the biggest gaming event happening, and it's happening next year. I think we're gonna get Wonder Woman there because Wonder Woman there
Definitely.
has that it's already been announced, but they need to show something. Now I wonder at the end of the year for VGAs next year is that are we gonna get WB Montreal's second game? That
It would
is a
depend on
question
this. It would depend on the success of Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League. It would depend. It would very
because
much depend.
you got to remember Suicide Squad Killer Justice League most likely will be game as a service game. Is it gonna be like the game is gonna be uh like Gotham Knights where it's 2 months and that's it, right?
Yeah,
WB are in a pickle right now because Marvel have got tons of games coming out. Marvel have got
Midnight
more than
Suns.
Midnight. Yeah, they got Midnight Suns. They've still got the Captain America Black Panther game. They've still got Wolverine. They've got Spider-Man 2 coming in the fall of next year. Um, there's so many big games coming out next year for Marvel, whereas DC is lacking on that. Yeah. Yeah, I was just talking about that, Tevia. We got Spider-Man PS5 coming out next year, Wolverine. So it's like WB needs to put out their DC IPs. They need to make big IPs out. They need to get Superman, Flash, Justice League, Titans, get them all out there and get it for different studios. Don't just depend on Rocksteady and WB Montreal just to be the two-man studio. It can't work like that. I'm afraid not in this day and age. If you need to sell your IPs, sell your IPs off to studios, then you have to do it like that, right?
Definitely, definitely.
Um, but it intrigues me, right, guys? I'm gonna be honest with you. It really intrigues me to think that, in the last decade, we've only, in the last, I would say, not decade, in the last 5 years, we've only had three DC games, whereas Marvel has had more than five games, right? WB
Right.
needs, Tevia says WB needs something for their games, not movie tying games, because that would be a massive mistake. Yes, definitely. If they do movie tying games, imagine movie tying games that because you know what James Gunn said on Twitter. Remember when James Gunn said, "Oh yeah, games are going to be tied into video games are going to be tied into the movies and the DC slate." I wonder. I wonder that. I wonder what type of games he's got up his sleeve. Um, the Batman says need that Injustice 3 as well. Yes, people are asking for that as well. Yeah, Tevia, there's only been three DC games in the last 5 years, right? 2017 Injustice, 2018 was Telltale. Telltale did Telltale Batman. Uh, and I'll let you think in a second. And then the third one being Gotham Knights. Alright, so
There
this
you
is
go.
what if I've just added your thing, it's not showing up.
Oh, sorry. Let me scroll up a little bit. Better?
Hold on, hold on. Your thing isn't showing.
Hold on. Let me try this. Can you
Alright,
see it
that
now?
yeah, I can see it now.
Okay.
Let me get rid of the banner 1 second. Alright, what's this?
It's a random post I was scrolling on, basically saying that Judas contract has been used so many times for the DCU to consider, but it's a classic storyline. So whether it be in game form or movie, I could definitely see at least a version of this. How likely do you think that would be, Taladia? Excuse me, I almost called you Tevia for a second.
Oh my god, I was about to say. Um, I I think when it comes down to Judas contract, they have to expand on it. They can't just use like for like. It has to be expanded on even further, like they did with Gotham Knights.
I agree because I still say Teen Titans 03 did it the best, but DeCamu, what the DeCamu did was just straightforward, just a straightforward play by play, but with a different roster. Young Justice just pulled a subversion. Arguably Ryan Johnson, depending on your personal taste or quality of that season, to where they just had Brion turn to the dark side so Farrah would live, and anything else was from Teen Titans Go, which I can't believe I'm saying this. Teen Titans Go just dropped the pretense and just made Tara a villain. Like, okay, thank you. Thank you. Spare us the cringe. But
And Tavia
yeah,
says, yeah, the Judas contract needs a break. Yes, I agree.
can't. But yeah, Judas contract has just been done so many times. So many times.
Yeah,
And just from that alone, that's like Teen Titans 03, Young Justice, Camu. That's at least 4 or 5 just off the top of my head. Even with Teen Titans Go, that's about 4 or 5.
yeah. So, like we said though, guys, like it it all depends on what WB Games want to do going forward and how many of you would pick up Superman? How many of you would pick up if there was another Batman Arkham game for WB Montreal? How many of you would pick that up? That's what I would like to know. How many of you would you guys pick up another Batman Arkham game if there was another Batman Arkham game in development? Right, that's something I would like to know. Um, so yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
A Superman game would be my first choice because it's been too long. It's been too long.
Yeah, take a look at private if you can.
Okay.
Um, I would pick a Superman game in a heartbeat. And the Batman says, um, thumbs up. Okay. I I would like to see. You know, it would be pretty cool. I think a Batman versus Deathstroke game.
Oh, I could see it. I could see it. I could
A
definitely
Batman
see it.
a Batman
Directed,
versus. Go on.
maybe directed by Ben Affleck. Maybe.
Well, this is a video game we're talking about.
Well, I mean, choreography is choreography. So, but
Uh, Tevia says another Arkham game wouldn't be the same without Conroy and Mark Hamill. However, the voice actors in Arkham Origins I thought were great. Okay, yeah, definitely. Um, Definitely going to be interesting to see if they go down another Arkham game, but only time will tell. The Batman says that Batman vs Deathstroke, take my money.
uh,
Forget Deathstroke versus Batman. What about Tevia? Batman versus
that
Deathstroke.
that might as well just be a Titans game. Nightwing versus
Yeah,
Deathstroke. That might as well. I get where you're coming from, but that might as well be a Titans game.
that might as well be Titan game. Yeah. So, um, yeah. So we're just while we're waiting. I know that we were expecting KYD to join us, but we don't know if he is. So, Jay, see if you can find out if there's any updates. If he,
I'll. Well, he just messaged me, and yeah, He's currently on the road. So
so I don't think he'll be able to join us tonight.
yes, true, Tevia. Nightwing is the official nemesis of Deathstroke from all with the rivalry and the death of Grant. There's definitely bad blood there. But again, you're comparing Nightwing by himself versus an individual IP like Deathstroke. That he's Nightwing's not as big as Batman is commercially. He's just not. So it might as well just be a Titans game.
Yes. Retro says a Lobo versus Superman game would be cool. Yeah, I can see that happening. You know, a Lobo versus Superman game. How do you feel about that, Jay?
Oh, definitely, definitely. Take my money. Take my money.
Take your money for that? Okay. Okay, guys. This is the part of the show now where you guys in the chat, besides Tevia, because we don't want to make it like all of just about Super Sons on the channel,
Come
right?
on, come on. Give Tevye a shot. At least
Okay,
give him
fine.
reduced time.
Okay, okay, you're right. All right, so you guys gotta say in the chat. You guys can join the panel for 5 minutes, and you guys can get your say on what we discussed, and if you guys wanna have any comments about DC Slate or anything that you guys want to talk about in the DC um, movie realm, or even the games, TV show, you guys name it, whatever you guys want to talk about, because we're coming up to the end of 2023 now, and I won't be streaming until next weekend, which is maybe either the 7th or the 14th. I'll be live. That's when it'll be next live that weekend. So you guys have a say, and there's a link in the chat right now for you guys to partake. Bless you.
Thank you.
So yeah, so that link is there. Everyone's welcome to join for that. Um, and we've got Tevye in the chat. He is joining us. Hey, Tevye.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Well, good. Well, next time my laptop is dead. It's like, yeah, gone. So yeah, that's getting fixed right now. But other than that, my day's doing good. How's your day?
Going pretty
Going
good.
good.
Can't complain.
Going,
Can't complain.
can't complain. Yes.
Yep.
From what we discussed, have you got any uh things, thoughts you want to add to what we talked about, and also what
hmm
is your thoughts for future games and stuff like that?
For future games, as I about before, I like Super Sun, but besides Super Sun, there's another cat I do want to say got adapted. Blue Beetle.
Blue Beetle.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think
Beetle,
Blue
interesting.
Beetle
okay.
game I think will be amazing. You gotta think about it. If you look at his power set and the technology he does, if you're playing Tetris 2, he would play for a video game. It can work.
Okay.
Yep.
Is
Definitely.
there is there any other topics you would like to add as well? What do you think about Suicide Squad, Killer Justice League,
I'd probably say
and
oh, sorry. I'll let you finish.
with Suicide Squad, Killer Justice League coming out next year?
Yeah.
Do you think Rocksteady will do a Justice League game after that?
Oh, I certainly hope so. I really do. Because I think they could do an amazing shooter squad good, not in such a good game. Because if they could do that, take the whole shooter squad made it would be amazing. As long as they do live service, that's a death sentence when to happen because live service games never work.
I agree.
Lose the
Dave,
gold.
You gotta
Yeah,
admit,
I'll be off
he's
with
got a
that.
point.
Yeah.
yeah, Boost the
Mm-hmm.
Gold and Blue Beetle. Yeah,
I'll be off with
definitely.
that. Boost the gold.
Yes.
Definitely a
Yeah.
blue and gold book. Definitely a
Yeah.
blue and gold game. Excuse me.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
blue
by the
game
way, guys, just
amazing.
look at the StreamYard link in the chat, invite for you guys to join, and you guys will get your
Yep.
say before we end the stream on a high note of the the end of the year stream, because this is the holiday special type of episode as we that is
Yeah.
something we wanted to do. But Tevia, is there anything else you're excited for next year besides games?
Besides games, I'm looking forward to a Across Spider Verse. Much because my favorite character, Marvel, Spider Girl. Yep, Manny Parker. I can't wait to
Okay,
see it in animation. I love the character. Like John, yeah, she's the dog people amazing. But she's amazing. I love the character. That's my movie to movie 23. But after anything else going 23, maybe Invincible if we can see season 2 it's gonna come out next year. I don't remember. That boy spinner looks interesting. But after anything else, I'm looking forward to 2023. Well, I got the anime movie I look forward to all year this year, so I think okay. I do looking for. I'm looking for a technically Apocalypse anime movie. That no, not Apocalypse. War World.
Justice League Warworld.
Yeah, I'm actually looking
Okay.
for that movie.
Okay,
But I got any movie coming
Okay.
out next year. Maybe Mission Impossible, maybe Transformers, maybe for the Beast Wars, like the Beast Wars characters.
interesting. Justice League Dark game.
Oh, that'd be
Nah,
awesome. I wish it did get dark. But everything
interesting.
else, yeah, I got nothing.
You got nothing? Okay.
That's all I got.
Well, Tevia, we appreciate you being part of the stream today. You're more than welcome back to come back on when I do this stuff for League of DC with myself, Jay Heat, KYD, and Jared, and maybe Nick if when they're available. And we're gonna be doing the DCU slate next stream if it's announced by then, or
Yeah.
when it does get announced, we'll be doing a special stream for that. So
Ooh, that sounds fun. I can't wait for that.
okay, cool. Well,
Yep.
Tevia, thanks for joining, and
Anytime, guys.
alright.
Yeah.
And okay, so Jay, any last remarks before I close the stream up? Any last things you've got coming up or any stuff you want to put yourself out there?
Well, I'm definitely gonna took a break for the holidays, but I'm definitely starting to swole tour the old Republic game playthroughs back. I'm definitely starting those again. Also, I'm gonna start a podcast series probably mid January, around midday, around 6 Eastern. So definitely be on the lookout for that. And hopefully, I can get the rest of the Comics League out here. Some shows it'll be each of them at a time. Other shows it'll be all of us together. But by all means, 2023 is going to be a good year. Can't wait to meet you all.
Okay, cool. Just before we finish, Dave says, "What was your favorite comic book film of the year? Black Adam, Edges Out, Werewolf by Night, and The Batman for me."
Black
Uh,
Adam is definitely the best out of the three because the Batman was just dragged way too long. Let's call it for
yeah,
what it is. And Werewolf by Night had potential, but it just not an poor execution in my opinion. Just poor
yeah. I'd say
execution.
I'd say for me it was for Black Adam. Black Adam was my favorite comic book of the year.
Now I get it. Black Adam should have been more of a Justice Society film, branding wise, but it did what it was supposed to do. It did what it was supposed to do.
Hey Mitchell, welcome on in. Welcome in. We were just talking about. Um, is we were just talking about WB Games Montreal next game. So if you got anything you'd like to say before I finish up, then feel free to put your last few comments in there before I end up. Uh, what game would you like to see, and what game do you think it is for the next WB Games Montreal game after Gotham Knights? After the recent failure of that game, Tevia says my favorite comic book movie was Batman and Superman: Battle of the Super Sons. Um, Black Adam all the way, of course, yes. Mitchell said, honestly, I think a Red Hood game would be cool. Interesting, but I don't think Red Hood they won't touch the IP again. I don't think. That's just me. Um, what was my favorite? Well, what was your favorite animated film, Jay?
My favorite animated film, oh, they were so limited this year. It's somewhere between Green Lantern Beware My Power and Super Sons. Now, don't Green and Super Sons. Don't get me wrong. Constantine the House of Mystery was good. It was a good epilogue to the Decamu, but it was a showcase short. You could have made a whole movie surrounding that, but they decided to settle on a showcase short instead. So that dropped it down for me. Yes, Green Lantern Beware My Power essentially just gave John Stewart Kyle Rayner's origin, but but it's still a good story. It brought John and Shire back. I'm a big DCAU fan, so nostalgia kind of won out there. As for Super Sons, it was okay. It was okay. It was definitely a piece of comfort and closure from the John Kent age up, but
Uh,
it was good for what it was.
yeah, I'd have to agree with you. For me, it was Green Lantern: Beware My Power because that was the only good one. Even though I'm a Superman fan, I just didn't feel it for me. Whereas Green Lantern told a really compelling story that made that makes sense if you know what I mean with Palarax. We never saw Palarax in an animated movie before, have we?
Not to my
So
knowledge, excuse me.
no, we haven't. So that's why it really sold me on that. But next year is gonna be big though, because you know what next year is.
Yep.
You know why it is next year, 85th anniversary of Superman, and
Yep.
you know they're gonna be doing some animated films for that.
Definitely. I mean, we got Superman World War. We have the Tomorrow versus Legion movie. Those are the first two we directly know right now, but this is definitely going to be a super year. And yes, that pun was totally intended. But okay, okay, Dave. I'll admit Hal got done dirty, but if it weren't for Jeff Johns and the Parallax retcon, that's pretty much what happened to Hal. Coast
Yeah,
City is destroyed. He goes against the Guardians trying to reconstruct it, disobeying the rules, and he loses his goddamn mind. if it weren't for the entities and the parallax retcon from Jeff Johns, that's pretty much the original version of what happened. Hal had PTSD from the destruction of Coast City, and he lost his goddamn mind.
Mm.
So I get where you're coming from, but that was the original version of events.
Uh, it says, the Batman says, I'm glad I'm not the only one who enjoyed Green Lantern Power, BMM Power. Yep, I enjoyed it for sure. Uh, we're also getting another Batman Elseworld animated film. Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Forgot about that.
That one isn't going to do well though. An Elseworld
Uh,
story. So I can't remember what the film title was called, but I do know there's another Batman film, animated film that is. Um, but that is gonna be it from League of DC today. What a year we've had, you know, for 2022. I appreciate all the support that I've had this year. If you're a new subscriber or that just recently joined, or even a subscriber that's that has joined for a long time, I support your support every all the support. Retro Nerd Girl, thank you for joining us. Happy New Year to you, and hopefully you guys stay safe out there. Have a great time if you're going out celebrating on New Year's Eve. And remember, don't forget the song "All Lang Syne" when you guys do the fireworks and stuff, because after do the countdown, they do "All Lang Syne" song. If you know what I mean. Uh, and yes, Debbie, have a good one. And yes, we will see you guys in 2023 for the DCU slate, where myself, Jay Heat, which is over here, right? He's over here, this big man. The, he will be joining me with Comics League and Nick from the Phoenix Press alongside KYD and the rest of the gang for the DCU slate talk, and we'll be talking about a lot more gaming in the future, and be excited for next year, guys. And remember, guys, 2023 is the year that we gotta support these films. So until then, stay safe out there. I've been your host, Taladia Plays, and you guys have been amazing. Stay safe. I'll see you guys in 2023.